Hey guys, Mr. Happy here, and today I kind of wanted to do a rant. I don't know why, but all of a sudden there was this idea in my head that I was just trying to get out, and I was like, I want to rant about this so bad, but I haven't really fully formulated my thoughts yet, and I guess that kind of is why I'm calling this an MMO rant. So consider this an MMO rant. I'm going to talk about gating content in MMORPGs. In fact, I don't even think I really need to say gating content in just MMORPGs. You can gate content in a lot of different ways in other games. I guess I'm just focusing on MMORPGs. I could think of ways to gate single-player games really easily. DLC is gating content because you're just releasing it in segments and making people pay extra for it. But in MMOs, I've noticed a trend lately. Now, the MMOs that I've played, I'm going to rattle off a list of the ones I've played. I have played the WildStar beta, I've played the ESO beta, I've played Final Fantasy XIV: A Realm Reborn, I've played 1.23, 1.18, 1.0 of Final Fantasy XIV. I've played Final Fantasy XI for 7 years. I'm playing it right now, revisiting it in my Final Fantasy XI series. In my childhood, I played a ton of free-to-play MMOs like Silk Road Online, and I tried Age of Wushu sometime last year. I played Hero Online. I played... come on, I know I've played more MMOs than that. I played World of Warcraft, not free-to-play, but I've played World of Warcraft. I've played my fair share of MMOs, is what I'm trying to say. And over the years, I'm trying to discern what are the aspects I absolutely loved about MMOs, what are the things that kept me playing, and why after all these years, after 13 years of playing MMOs, I was 11 years old when I started playing MMOs. I am 13? Yeah, I'm turning 24 later this year, but yeah. So, and I just looked at it and I finally realized sort of how to put it into words. I realized that, at least in my terminology, there's two forms of gated content in all MMOs. Well, not all MMOs, but this is the types of gated content I've seen in MMOs. So I've seen content that is gated by time and content that is gated by effort. Now, I know those terms are really, really, really off, because even if something is gated by time, it still requires effort, and even if something is gated by effort, it still requires time. So let me elaborate more on what I mean by gated by time and gated by effort. So gated by time means that you can only perform a specific piece of content every so often. What this does is, while you play less over the course of, let's say, a week is usually a good sort of lockout timer that games use, you play the game every week to perform that content, so it keeps you playing over a longer period of time. While you don't necessarily pour more hours into it, you actually play over a longer period, which is a good business way of approaching things. It keeps people playing your product longer, especially people who are really, really into collecting everything in a game. It definitely keeps people playing your games longer and generates greater subscription revenue, or if you're in the free-to-play model, it further encourages people to use the in-game shop, whether or not they're paying for an advantage for a pay-to-win game, or they're paying for aesthetics. Because they're investing time into the game, it is safe to assume people will also invest money into the game as well. Now, when I say gated by effort, it means that regardless of time constraints, it could take you 5 minutes, it could take you 5 hours. If you put in the effort, you will actually be able to appreciate a piece of content. Now, most specifically, what comes to mind here is Final Fantasy XI gated by effort. I think of things like Notorious Monsters. I think of things like Force Pops, like, you have to get an item to spawn a monster. Those are things that are gated by, for the most part, effort. For some people, some of those pop items were gated for money, but money takes effort to get, takes effort and time to get, for most people at least. So let's just assume that you're doing the content the way that it's intended to be reproduced. For example, those of you who didn't play Final Fantasy XI, Notorious Monsters were enemies that could spawn anywhere from 15 minutes to 72 hours apart. I mean, some of them had even longer spawn times than that. But they all basically forced you to be in one spot for a period of time in hopes that you would be the one to get to fight that enemy over somebody else. And that, even when I mentioned pop items, carried into some of the other effort-based content, such as there was 2 events called Sky and Sea, and basically in Sky there were several of these Notorious Monsters. You would camp them and you would get those pop items, and with those pop items you would spawn other Notorious Monsters, eventually leading to the ultimate one, which had not necessarily the best gear, but he was the hardest one to defeat of them. That's usually how it worked for Sky and Sea, and it continued on in future aspects as well. So, how do these two pieces of content work together in an MMO? I realize that the perfect MMO for me has both of these things. Now, I already know that my next explanation is going to make me look very Final Fantasy XI fanboyish, but I played it for 7 years, so I guess that's okay. I would like a game that has both of these types of gated contents. And here's a good reason why I think games need both of these types of gated contents. Gated by time makes it so that people don't overdo your content. Now, that is actually a fairly good thing, not just for subscription model wise, but in terms of actually getting the most out of the experience. Players have to experience that piece of content repeatedly if they wish to get proficiency out of it, if they wish to get gear, they wish to get rewards, if they wish to get rating experience, they need to do those things. And I appreciate it to some degree, but of course there's pros and cons. Pros is, it means you'll have to do it a lot more. It's weird. You can look at the pros and cons almost as the same thing. You'll have to do the content repeatedly. Sure, that means you get more out of it, but that also means that it may grow tiresome after some time. But at least it is something to do, and you don't need to invest a ton of time into it. Once you're done with it, you're done with it for the week. And that's it. You can focus your efforts on content that's gated by efforts. And that's what I really like about it. That's why I like the mixture of gated by content and gated by time. Because when you're done with the stuff that's gated by time, it gives you the spare time to do things that are gated by effort. So, for example, Final Fantasy XI. Let's say you got Dynamis. Dynamis is something that's gated by time. You used to. Now it's totally different, but I'm speaking about in the olden days. You used to, once every 3 days, you could enter. Once every 3 days. So you were gated by time, and that was it. Of course, once you were inside, it required effort, as I've been saying, but the content itself was gated by time. You could only perform it every so often. And then, let's say you have those 3 days and you're not doing Limbus, you're not doing, I don't even know, other content gated by time, you're not doing E&Ms, you're not doing anything, I don't know. You're just not doing anything else. And now you have all those 3 days to do content that's gated by effort. For example, you'll have a night to go to Sky and farm some notorious monsters to eventually get some pop items to eventually kill maybe Byakko or Genbu or Sieryu or Kirin. I know I pronounced one of those wrong, at least one of those wrong, but regardless, I should just watch Yu Yu Hakusho. They have all those Saint Beasts and I could get that. But anyway, going off topic. And you could get some items, and sure, it took time, but you weren't gated necessarily by time. You were gated by how much effort you were willing to put into to get these items, to know when they were actually, like, most people didn't just spend time waiting on a notorious monster spawn. That's technically almost gated by time since they can only spawn every so often. You would make use of your time. You would go, okay, this thing spawned 2 hours ago, and it's going to spawn in like the next 15 to 30 minutes, so we're going to go there, least amount of time invested, but we got to make sure we can kill it. We got to make sure we can claim it and kill it before anybody else. Gated by effort. Also, BCNMs, things where you had to farm up Beastman Seals, Kindred Seals. Sure, they took time, but as long as you put in the effort, you would get something out of it. It didn't matter at all. Now, that's why I said my thoughts have not properly been formulated here. I don't know if gated by content is necessarily the right terminology, or gated by effort, I apologize, is the right way of discussing that, of describing that type of gating. Because time and effort are both such major components of both of those. No matter if something is gated by time or not, if you don't put in the effort, you won't get anything out of it. And even if something is gated by effort, if you don't put the time in, you won't get anything out of it. So it's a really fine line between the two types of content, but what they both do is they give you something to do outside of the restricted time areas or effort areas. If you can only do something once every 3 days, regardless of whether or not you beat it, then it's nice to have things that if you have spare time and you want to spend it on the game, you can do all those things as long as you're willing to put in the effort. And vice versa, if you're tired of doing all this super major like camping, and if you're like, oh, you're just frustrated, you didn't get enough of an item, or you didn't get the spawn item you wanted, or you didn't get the drop that you wanted, even after spending all those hours, then you have the time to go back on. You can be like, all right, well, Limbus is now Dynamis, and I'm sorry these are all Final Fantasy 11 examples, but it's just the MMO I'm most accustomed to, the one I've played the most in my lifetime. So, what am I saying here? What is the whole point of this rant? I mean, I'm sure you're wondering, why am I even bothering saying all this? And people wonder that about rants anyway. But I'm saying it because I'm currently playing Final Fantasy XIV: A Realm Reborn, and I'm playing Final Fantasy XI at the same time. Now, while I'm doing this, I am making sure to keep up my information on WildStar, on The Elder Scrolls Online, and World of Warcraft. I'm watching the MMO market out there, and I'm seeing how it evolves and where developers are taking it now. And even Final Fantasy 11 is starting to try and bring some life back into the gated by effort part of the world, and it's really become more gated. It's not been so much gated by effort, I think, anymore as it has been gated by time, and they've kind of been going in that direction for a few years. There's always few things that were gated by effort, but for the most part they were sort of pushing you into those time restraints, but there was still plenty to do in the world that was gated by effort as long as you were willing to do it. Now, I'm watching all the other MMOs out there. You know, World of Warcraft has done its thing. I kind of like what they do, where they've been trying to add these open world bosses that definitely have some interest for raid groups out there that want to gather up and do them. Those sort of things are also sort of gated by effort. They're also trying to add a little bit more uniqueness to their world by adding new zones whenever they add these daily things. And I think adding a new zone when you add dailies, by the way, is the right way of doing things, because it really sort of gives you more room to work with in terms of implementation. You can wow people with some new sceneries, with some new quests, with some new enemies, and it's always a good thing. I think World of Warcraft has done some of those things extremely correctly. Not so sure where they're going in Warlords of Draenor in terms of garrisons and all that, but I'll be sure to follow that, and I'm sure I'll have a rant on it at some point later along the line. WildStar, I hear people tell me they're being wildly innovative and they're completely remaking the MMO format, and I see a lot of little mechanical things that I definitely do like about WildStar. I don't think it's as wildly innovative as people are making it out to be. I think that the whole aiming thing, okay, that's just a new way of showing your abilities and how they work. In all realism, it's still, you know, action bars and all that. It's still an action bar, and you're still using abilities. Every different class or job has their own class. I guess we'll go with classes more common in other MMOs. They have their own resource bars, and each resource bar has its own sort of way of working. But, you know, when I've played the beta, in the videos I've seen, it's still your standard MMO. I don't see anything at the foundation that makes it so significantly different from the market. I hope people stop hyping it up as much, because I want WildStar to be successful. I want more successful MMOs out there, whether or not they're subscription or pay to play. I really want some successful games, even if they're not MMOs. I just want more successful long-term games out there. Games that are really sticking around and staying, with adding patches and adding content. Like even Path of Exile is not even MMO. But the way that they are doing that game is brilliant. It's amazing how GGG, I can't remember the exact name, I just remember for some reason the triple G's popped up in my head. The way that they're doing it, that, you know, they're doing races and, you know, they've got all these different leagues. Now, leagues, of course, you'd expect out of any, I guess you could say, good action RPG. But it's an RPG nonetheless, and just its design I really enjoy. And what was the only other MMO I didn't really... I guess Final Fantasy XIV was the last... Oh, maybe ESO? Because ESO is like, I don't know, it just disappoints me. I've played it. I just can't get into it. I don't know what it is. I don't know how they spent so much money on that game, and it's just not enjoyable. But then again, I did play Final Fantasy XIV 1.0, so I guess I can understand it a little bit. I don't know, man. I feel like somebody needs to come out and make that crazy MMO that everybody wants to play. Like when World of Warcraft came out back in the days, you either loved it or hated it, and you either hated that you loved it or loved that you hated it. So, I don't know, man. I still like the MMOs that I play. I still enjoy Final Fantasy XIV. I'm looking forward to the updates. I'm looking forward to doing more content on it. I'm looking forward to playing Final Fantasy XI again and doing videos and content on that. I'm also looking forward to checking out what new MMOs are coming out this year. You know, I'm definitely going to be doing reporting on ESO and WildStar, and I don't know if I'll report on Warlords of Draenor. I don't know. I have an interest in the world of Warcraft, but not the world of Warcraft. You know, Azeroth and the stories behind it, and the deep interconnecting lore that you really have to strive to search for, but it's rich. It's rich in lore, and I really like worlds that have a lot of story to them. The world itself needs a lot of story, and maybe for that much I'll be able to talk about that in the future. But overall, I don't know, man. I don't know what I wanted to achieve with this rant. I couldn't get it out of my head, and I couldn't formulate it into words. I couldn't figure out the right words when I kept saying gated by effort, gated by effort, gated by effort. That just doesn't seem right to me, but it's the only way I can think to put it. But anyway, all I want to say in the end is the MMOs I play, I would like to see a mix of both of these things. Doesn't matter which MMO. I'm playing 14 and I'm playing 11, and each of them sort of has that aspect. When I feel like doing certain things that are gated by time, I go play Final Fantasy 14. When I feel like doing things that are gated by effort, like Notorious Monster Camping, I go play Final Fantasy 11. And I play it the old-fashioned way. I'm really not looking forward to getting into Seekers of Adulin. I'm really enjoying my low-level adventures, even if it's sort of lacking the personality that it used to have. It at least still has the memories and the nostalgia, so I'll throw on my rose-tinted glasses and head over to Vanadil in between my adventures in Eorzea. But anyway, guys, thanks for listening to the rant. If you can think of a word that's better than gated by effort, please put it in the comments below. I know somebody out there has definitely got a better formulated opinion on this. And be sure to share your opinions in the comments below. I already know there's going to be a dogfight going on in the comments below. But whatever, you know, it's a rant. What are you expecting? People have opinions, and people are entitled to their opinions. You know, especially if you have facts to back it up, if you have opinions even to back it up. As long as you're showing that it's your opinion and not stating it as fact, then I guess I don't know. I don't even know what I'm ranting about responding to the rant right now, which I guess goes with my nature. But anyway, guys, thank you for listening to this rant. I just really needed to get this out there. Like, favorite, subscribe, and share. Maybe I'll do some more rants in the future. Maybe I'll make a game rant thing in the future. I have no idea. Also, feel free to like, favorite, I said that already. See, I'm not even doing this right. Feel free to follow me on Facebook and Twitter, where you can get regular updates, and you can pick my brain about this a little bit more. You can pick my brain a lot more easily through Facebook and Twitter. And of course, be sure to follow me on Twitch. I got Final Fantasy February coming up in the near future. Going to be streaming as many Final Fantasy games in that month as possible. It's looking to be a lot of fun, guys. But anyway, thank you for listening to my rant, and until next time, take care.